Alright, let's dive into something that's been on my mind lately, the Beatles Revolver. This album is a masterpiece, no doubt, but there's so much more to it than just the music. Personally, I think what makes Revolver so fascinating is how it captures the Beatles at a pivotal moment, experimenting, pushing boundaries, and redefining what an album could be. But here's the thing, there's a whole layer of stories and decisions behind the scenes that most people don't talk about. So, let's unpack some of these lesser-known gems and see what they reveal about the band and their process. First off, did you know the Beatles originally wanted to record Revolver at Stax Studios in Memphis? Yeah, the home of soul legends like Otis Redding and Isaac Hayes. What makes this really interesting is that it shows how much the Beatles were influenced by American music. They weren't just British invaders, they were students of the global music scene. But here's the kicker, the plan fell through, reportedly because of security concerns and financial demands. George Harrison even wrote a letter saying, "Too many people get insane with money ideas at the mention of the word Beatles. In my opinion, this decision was a blessing in disguise." Recording at EMI Studios, later Abbey Road, allowed them to focus solely on the music, as Paul McCartney later pointed out. It's a reminder that sometimes constraints can lead to creativity. Now, let's talk about the album's artwork. The front cover, designed by Klaus Vuhrmann, is iconic, but have you ever flipped it over? The back cover photo, taken by Robert Whittaker, is the same guy who shot the infamous Butcher cover for Yesterday and Today. What many people don't realize is that Whittaker's work with the Beatles was short-lived, but incredibly impactful. His photos captured a raw, experimental side of the band that was ahead of its time. It's like he saw something in them that even they were still figuring out. Here's a detail I find fascinating, the guitar solo in Taxman. Yeah, that's Paul McCartney, not George Harrison. From my perspective, this is a perfect example of how the Beatles weren't bound by traditional roles. They were a collective, and if someone else could bring something unique to the table, they'd let them. Harrison even said he was pleased with McCartney's solo, noting the little Indian bit he added. This raises a deeper question. How much of their genius came from this willingness to swap roles and challenge expectations? Now, let's talk about influences. The Beatles and the Beach Boys were basically in a creative arms race in the mid-60s. Brian Wilson heard Rubber Soul and was inspired to create Pet Sounds. Then the Beatles heard Pet Sounds and McCartney wrote Here, There and Everywhere as a response. If you take a step back and think about it, this is collaboration at its finest, even if it was indirect. It's like they were pushing each other to new heights without even realizing it. One thing that immediately stands out is the story behind She Said She Said. Lennon wrote part of the lyrics after a conversation with Peter Fonda, who claimed to know what it was like to be dead. What this really suggests is how the Beatles were absorbing everything around them, the good, the bad, the bizarre, and turning it into art. Lennon later called Fonda boring, but that didn't stop him from using the line. It's a reminder that inspiration can come from the strangest places. And let's not forget Yellow Submarine. Sure, it's a kid's song, but did you know Donovan helped write the line Sky of Blue, Sea of Green? What makes this really interesting is how the Beatles weren't afraid to ask for help, even from their peers. It's a detail that humanizes them, they weren't these untouchable geniuses, they were collaborators who knew when to bring someone else into the mix. Here's something I bet you didn't know, the French horn solo in 401 was played by Alan Civil, one of only 5 session musicians ever credited on a Beatles track. This guy went on to play on A Day in the Life from Sgt. Pepper. What this really suggests is that the Beatles had an ear for talent and weren't afraid to bring in outsiders to elevate their sound. Now, let's talk about the album's title. Revolver could have been called Abracadabra, Bubble and Squeak, or even Freewheelin' Beatles. Personally, I think Revolver was the perfect choice. It's sharp, concise, and a little mysterious. But these alternative titles give us a glimpse into their thought process. It's like they were trying to capture the essence of the album in a single word. Finally, let's address the elephant in the room, Lennon's more popular than Jesus comment. What many people don't realize is that this controversy actually influenced the album's promotion in the US. Capitol Records pushed Yellow Submarine instead of Eleanor Rigby because of its religious references. And it worked. Yellow Submarine hit number 2 on the charts. It's a reminder that even the Beatles had to navigate the politics of their time. So, here's my closing thought. Revolver isn't just an album, it's a snapshot of a band in flux, experimenting, and evolving. Every decision, from where they recorded to who played what, tells a story. And that's what makes it timeless. What do you think? Is there a detail about Revolver that stands out to you? Let me know in the comments.